"Order up," Benny yelled from the kitchen window. Maya Torres grabbed the tray before the steam even cleared. Her hands shook slightly, not from the heat, but from exhaustion. She hadn't slept more than 4 hours in 2 days, and the smell of frying bacon was the only thing keeping her upright. She forced a smile and rushed toward table 6, weaving between chairs and customers with the grace of someone who'd done this too long. "Here you go. Pancakes with extra syrup," she said, setting the plate down in front of a fidgety kid. "Thanks," the boy muttered without looking up. Maya straightened and exhaled, rubbing her wrist. The bell above the diner door jingled, and a gust of cold wind swept through. In stepped an older man in a long brown coat, shaking rain from his hat. He looked uncertain, as if the world had stopped making space for him. "Sit anywhere you like, sir," Maya called, grabbing a coffee pot. He chose the booth near the window, the same seat most people avoided because of the leaky drip from the roof. She approached, smiling through her fatigue. "Morning, sir. Coffee, please," he said, his voice calm but worn thin. As she poured, he studied her name tag. Maya. That's a nice name. Not many still introduce themselves with a smile these days. She laughed lightly. "Well, it's part of the job description." He looked out at the rain. "Then you're good at it." Before the story unfolds any further, take a second, like this video, subscribe, and drop a comment telling us if you've ever met a stranger who changed the way you see life. Your thoughts might just inspire someone else watching. Maya felt something in that line, something she hadn't heard in a while, genuine warmth. "You new in town?" she asked. "Just moved in last month," he said. "Walter Henderson, retired carpenter." "Well, Mr. Henderson, welcome to Riverview," she said. "The pancakes won't change your life, but the coffee might." He chuckled, the sound dry but kind. As she left to grab his order pad, Benny hollered from the kitchen again. "Torres, you got 4 orders stacking." "On it," she yelled back, already running. If you've ever worked a job that made you question everything, you know exactly how Maya feels right now, juggling exhaustion, bills, and hope. When Maya returned to Walter's table, she found him holding a small photograph. A woman in her late 50s smiled from it. Gentle eyes, silver streaks in her hair, holding wildflowers. "She's beautiful," Maya said softly. Walter looked up, his eyes distant. "She was my wife. Gone almost a year now. I'm so sorry." He nodded. "You'd think grief fades, but it doesn't. It just sits quieter." Maya hesitated, then whispered, "Sometimes quiet hurts worse." He smiled faintly. "You understand." She did. Too well. Between her mother's hospital bills and her brother's endless texts begging for help, she'd learned that silence had a weight. Walter started coming every morning after that. Same booth, same order. Oatmeal, 2 slices of toast, black coffee. He always placed that photograph beside his cup, like a quiet companion. Sometimes he'd tell stories. How he built furniture for 30 years. How his wife used to hum while sanding wood. Other days they just sat in silence, both pretending that silence didn't ache. One rainy Thursday, he said, "You remind me of her." Maya blinked. "Your wife." He nodded. She used to believe everyone was worth a smile, even when the world didn't smile back. "That's sweet." She smiled shyly. "I think she'd be proud you remember her that way." He looked down at the cup. "She'd be proud of you too." Weeks slipped by. Maya began to look forward to his visits more than her breaks. When Walter didn't show up one morning, she felt it immediately, a hollow space where his voice should have been. The next day came. Still nothing. By the 3rd day, her chest tightened every time the bell over the door rang, only to find strangers. "Benny," she said finally, wiping her hands, "you see Mr. Henderson this week?" The cook shrugged. "Old fellow with the hat?" "Nah, maybe he's under the weather." "Yeah," she murmured. "Maybe," but the worry clawed at her. On her lunch break, she called the hospital. "Hi, can you tell me if a Walter Henderson's been admitted?" A pause. Then, "Yes, ma'am. Room 104. Maya's stomach dropped. She didn't even ask for permission. She just grabbed her coat and ran. By the time she reached the hospital, the rain had turned to mist. When she entered the room, Walter looked fragile, smaller than she remembered. But when he saw her, a slow smile tugged at his lips. "You came," he whispered. "Of course I came," she said, sitting beside him. You vanished on me. Guess I needed a break from oatmeal. She laughed softly, though tears burned her eyes. You scared me, old man. He squeezed her hand weakly. Didn't mean to. Didn't think anyone would notice if I was gone. Maya's throat tightened. I would have noticed. For the first time in days, Walter looked peaceful. You're a good soul, Maya Torres. She smiled through the ache. Don't make me cry. I've got customers waiting. He chuckled. Tell them the old man made you late. That night, Maya walked out of the hospital under the soft glow of the streetlights, clutching her damp jacket. For once, she didn't feel tired. She felt grateful. The next few evenings, she kept visiting after a shift. Sometimes she brought him coffee from the diner, lukewarm but made with care. Sometimes she just listened to his stories about his wife. Then one evening, as she stood to leave, Walter held her hand a little longer. Thank you, he said quietly, for treating me like I still matter. You do matter, she replied, voice trembling. You do matter, she replied, voice trembling. He smiled faintly. You've got no idea how long it's been since anyone said that. Maya didn't answer. She just squeezed his hand, unwilling to let go. When she left that night, something in her chest had changed. The world didn't feel quite as cold. The next morning, Benny's Corner Diner felt emptier than usual. The chatter of regulars didn't fill the room like before. Maya wiped the counter slower, her eyes darting to the door every time the bell jingled, hoping, somehow, it would be him. But Walter didn't come back. 3 days later, the hospital called. The voice on the other end was soft, careful. Miss Torres? Mr. Walter Henderson listed you as an emergency contact. Maya froze. What happened? There was a pause. Then the words dropped heavy. I'm sorry. He passed away this morning. She didn't respond. Couldn't. Her throat felt like it was closing. After the call, she stood motionless behind the counter, clutching the phone as if holding on could bring him back. Benny looked at her from the kitchen, confused, but one look at her face told him not to ask. When her shift ended, Maya walked out into the drizzle. She didn't use an umbrella. She let the rain soak her uniform until it clung to her skin. For once, the noise of the world seemed distant. All she could hear was Walter's voice echoing softly. You've got no idea how long it's been since anyone said that. The next morning, she went to the hospital to collect his things. A small cardboard box sat on the nurse's desk. His hat, a wallet, a folded photo of his wife, and a sealed envelope with her name written neatly across it. Maya's hands trembled as she opened it. Dear Maya, if you're reading this, it means I finally want to see my Helen again. Don't be sad. I've been ready for a while. I left something for you. It's not much, but I hope it helps you chase whatever dream you've been hiding behind that tired smile. You gave an old man a reason to look forward to mornings again. That's worth more than gold. With love, Walter Henderson. She found a small key taped inside the letter and a note that said, Locker 23, Riverview Storage. Heart pounding, she went straight there. Inside the locker were a few wooden boxes, handcrafted, beautifully polished, and one small chest. When she opened it, tears flooded her eyes. Inside was a neat bundle of cash, maybe a few $1,000s, and a note pinned to it. For the girl who reminded me that kindness still exists. Maya sat on the cold floor, staring at the money through blurry eyes. For years, she'd been scraping tips, skipping meals, pushing through exhaustion. And now, a man who barely knew her had left her a gift not out of pity, but gratitude. That night, back at the diner, she worked her shift as usual, but something about her was different. Her smile wasn't forced anymore. When customers walked in, she greeted them like old friends. She refilled coffee cups without being asked. Benny noticed. You're glowing, he teased. Did someone give you a raise I don't know about? Maya laughed softly. Something like that. Weeks passed, and the diner slowly filled again with the rhythm of life. But Maya kept Walter's photograph taped behind the counter, the one of him and his wife. Every morning, before opening, she whispered, Good morning, Walter. One afternoon, a man in a black jacket entered the diner and walked up to her counter. You Maya Torres? He asked. She nodded cautiously. I'm from Henderson and Company. Legal Services. Mr. Walter Henderson's estate. He handed her an envelope. He left you something else. Maya's hands trembled again as she opened it. Inside was a legal document. Ownership papers for Henderson Carpentry Workshop, the old woodworking shop on Maple Street. The lawyer smiled. He said you'd know what to do with it. She laughed through tears. No, I really don't. But that night, she walked to the workshop. Dusty tools, the faint smell of cedar, and sunlight streaming through cracked glass. On the workbench was one last unfinished project, a small wooden plaque. The letters carved halfway read, "For the ones who never stopped trying." She stood there for a long time, then picked up the chisel. Her hand shook as she traced the next letters, her tears mixing with sawdust. Months later, the old workshop reopened as Helen's Hands, a community space for second chances. Maya turned it into a small woodworking studio where people could come to learn, talk, or just belong, the same way Walter once made her feel. Every corner of that place carried his memory. The laughter, the stories, the kindness that asked for nothing in return. Sometimes she'd catch herself talking to his photo on the wall. "You see, old man, you didn't just build furniture. You built people back up." And in those quiet moments, she could almost hear his chuckle again. That dry, warm laugh echoing softly in her heart. If this story touched you, don't scroll away yet. Hit the like button, subscribe, and tell us in the comments. Do you believe one act of kindness can change someone's life forever? Share your thoughts below, because your words might be the light someone else needs tonight. And if you know someone who'd love this story, share it with them. Let Walter's kindness live a little longer. Because sometimes the smallest smile in the darkest place can become someone's reason to hope again.